The higher you're promoted in an organization, the less clear the issues become. When you were just a frontline employee, a lot of the technical details were much more straightforward. You had a clear right, clear wrong, clear up, clear down, black is white, all of that works. But as you get promoted into leadership roles, it becomes less about what is technically correct and where your influence lies. So how do you manage this ambiguity? Hey, I know leadership is hard and no one's told you how to do it, but you don't have to face it alone. My name's Matthew, I'm here to help. Let's figure out this leadership thing together. To figure this out, we need to look at 3 different things. First, we need to figure out what our goal and mission is. Then we need to figure out what is the actual problem we're trying to solve. And third, we need to get other perspectives. Where we want to start is with our goal and our mission. And this can be broken into 2 different sections. The first is looking at what is the company's mission in all of this? What is the organization ultimately trying to do? And make sure that you are aligned with what those objectives are. If the company's goal is clear, then this is a very useful tool to make sure that not only are you in the right place, but you're moving in the right direction. Now, the real challenge is, and I've certainly faced this myself, is working with a company where the mission or the goals of the company are the most bland or cookie cutter, ChatGPT created kind of mission statement that is uninspiring. That happens, and there isn't a lot you can do until you get into the senior leadership roles about that. So if you're in one of those organizations, the next thing you want to align with what are the goals of your particular group. Certainly talking to your boss about what are the priorities, what is the most important thing. Get good and clear on those objectives. That will provide you with a direction forward. But then also consider, what are your personal objectives and values? What do you think is the most important thing to be working on if you're not getting that kind of input from the rest of the organization? At least be consistent and aligned with what is important in your life. I'll give you an example. So for me, I'm a process guy. I like to have things clearly identified and organized so that the work is done efficiently and effectively. So a lot of my choices when it came to executing on projects or getting the work done was, how do I build a system that my employees would be able to execute over and over again accurately? That was my priority. Now, I've worked with other people whose priority is about the harmony of the team and making sure that everyone gets along and feels seen and feel heard. So consider where your strengths are and use that to help you guide what your solution will be. This may all seem pretty self-evident. Obviously, we want to be working in line with what the company's objectives are. But the thing is that we often get caught up in the work and we don't even realize that we're not aligned with the goals because we're just on autopilot. We're automatically executing tasks that are put in front of us and not really considering, is this actually aligned? So take a moment right at the start, make sure that you're aligned on what you're working on, and then start working through the things that are unknown. After you've aligned yourself with the company's objectives or your own objectives, then you want to figure out, what is it that you're actually trying to do? What is the work actually about? So if it's a startup of a new project, or you're in the task of turning a project around, then your work is going to naturally involve not a lot of clear information. There's going to be a lot of ambiguity, and that's fine. Knowing that is going to help you have the freedom to not rely on waiting for facts and figures, because they're not going to come, frankly. It's going to rely on your instincts and your ability to act quickly and make decisions confidently. Alternatively, if the project is a sustainment project or maybe just a realignment where you're just making tweaks on an existing process or project, you're going to have a little bit more time to figure this out. This way you can start asking questions to get the data you need, get the information you need, and work with people to map out a successful strategy. You have a little bit more time to figure this out. So use it. All right. So you've taken the time to align yourself with the company's mission and values and goals. You have figured out whether you are working on a startup or turnaround project, or if it's a realignment or sustainment project, and you're still having issues, then now's the time to get an outside perspective. So here's a thought exercise I'd like you to try. This is just a mental exercise. The goal is not to actually come up with specific answers, but rather to trigger ideas in your head and different ways of looking at the same problem. So what I want you to do is I want you to pick somebody, say your mother, I don't know, pick somebody who would not normally ever be involved in the work that you are doing, and imagine how they would solve this particular problem. What are the sorts of things would they say? What would their objectives be? Are they comfortable? Are they uncomfortable? Are they expressing frustration? Are they expressing confidence? What ideas do they come up with? The goal of this isn't to get the answer specifically. It's to get you out of your own head, to look at the problem, look at this ambiguous situation from a new angle. And it might spark ideas for you, things you hadn't considered before, maybe approaches that you could try. So try that. Get your head into a different person's head and see what comes out. I also recommend doing this several times. So ideally you want to pick several people who are very different from each other. So you may choose who your greatest rival is, or maybe a villain from a superhero movie, or maybe something completely random like your dog or your house plant, something that's bonkers, because you may get to a different way of looking at the problem in something creative and something unusual. And there lies the ideas and the possible solution. And finally, have you tried talking to a human about this problem? Sometimes working with a mentor, working with your colleagues and brainstorming ideas are a good way to get a fresh perspective. But beware on this, especially with people within the organization, because a lot of the people who you are working with will likely be approaching the problem from the same mindset as you. So it's important to get a different perspective. Work with somebody from a different department, get their view on the matter, or possibly a different organization, obviously being mindful of any IP issues or security or privacy issues. But if you can get a different perspective, that can be helpful. Ambiguous situations are always going to be the challenge because there's no clear answer. And your skill at solving this problem is going to rely on dealing with a lack of information and a lack of clear outcomes in order to solve the actual problem. And sometimes the answer won't present itself until you're already in the process of solving it. But if you try some of these techniques I talked about today, then that might get you closer to getting you through the maze. So, how do you solve ambiguous situations? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, let's get to work.